Welcome back to Total War Therapy. Today we're gonna make the tier ranking list of my favorite monogod faction, the greatest Tzeentch. Before that, as I promised, I will show you the roadmap for the first week of February. On Wednesday, as usual, next tier ranking list. On Monday, an old format of this channel, a guide and ranking of all the characters of the Omens of Destruction DLC. And on Friday, the long-awaited 4 categories of artillery. I'm a little sad because with this video we will end the series, but who knows, with all the suggestions you made in the comments, maybe I could do everything again. Few more seconds to remind you of the roadmap of this week with the last video on Friday about the 4 categories of Dwarves Heroes, so please feel free to subscribe if you want to support my channel and we can start. The criteria we will follow for this ranking will be the same as always. The price value, so if a unit is worthy money-wise, the cost opportunity if there are different better options to fill the same role, and the management required to use the unit effectively. Let's start with the notorious demonic infantry of Tzeentch, the Horrors. The Blue Horrors were at the release the only melee infantry option available in the early campaign, but now with Champions of Chaos DLC and with the Shadows of Change, we have a melee roster a little more structured. The Blue Horrors are still a great unit, they are very cheap, they are the best filler, they have this range attack with a little range, but the missile power is strong enough to hit very hard other missile units, and they still have the magic shield, so they will be quite protected. For me, they are at this point a A-tier unit. Pink Horrors are half the number of Blue Horrors, but they have an actual missile attack with a decent range, and they do honestly a lot of damage. They have many ammunition, and you can use them as many other infantry units in this game, and as that they are definitely a overpowered unit for me. You need some of them, 4 of them at most, in any of your army, Tzeentchian army, because they are only missile, consistent missile unit in the game, and yeah, you can rely on them from the beginning to the very late campaign. Exalted Pink Horrors are just the same with better stats. I will put them in the B tier for one reason. You're paying more, you're waiting more time, more turns to recruit them, but what it actually increased mostly in them, it's the melee stats. That is still not strong to compete with other melee infantry in this game, so they are just tougher in case they will be charged by other infantry, but it's not an excuse to use them in melee. And about the missile power, they get just 5 points more, so yeah, I would avoid to recruit a lot. I mean, if you have money, you can start to replace your Pink Horrors with them, but they are not that needy choice when you move over in the campaign. So for me, a B tier. All the Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch have been introduced with the Champions of Chaos DLC. Let's start with the Marauders of Tzeentch. They are actually a quite good unit in the early campaign, and you need them to defend your Pink Horrors, other beasts, other monsters, your very weak lords, and both the version with the shield against missile attack and the version with the spears to defend your flank from beast and cavalry, they are quite helpful. So don't get angry, but I will put them both in the A tier, because for their price, for their tier, they justify the value. Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch for me are another OP units. They are quite strong even in the late campaign. We'll talk later about Chosen, but I really think that they are still a reliable choice even when you move forward in your campaign. You have the version with shield that, as I say, protects you from missile, and it's a perfect front line overall. And the version in this case not with spears but with halberds, so even armor piercing damage, that it's quite helpful to as a support or to defend your flank. In the Tzeentch roster there is a lot to defend, and you need this wall of units to protect them. So these 2 units from the beginning to the late campaign, they are very helpful, and for me the best solid choice, cost effective. The Chosen, as I said, they are better at any stats, but they are too much expensive. even compared to other elite infantry of other faction, they are too expensive. That's why I would not suggest you to recruit a lot of them in your army. If you have a really surplus of money, maybe you can start to think of replace your Chaos Warriors with the Chosen. But unless you're in a serious troubles with a very strong faction, I would suggest you still keep with the Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch. So for me, a B tier unit both. The Forsaken of Tzeentch. I'm not happy with this decision, but I think we have to give to Car France what it's of Car France, and the Forsaken for me are a B tier units. They are a generic units of all monogods. That's why I don't like it and I don't use that much, but they are immune to psychology, they have frenzy, and they deal a lot of damage in exchange of some melee stats. So that can be a very good assault units in case you are playing offensively with Tzeentch, maybe against other Chaos faction. They are a good choice, I have to admit it. The Zangors are something between the Marauders and the Chaos Warriors. They are basically faster, they have a bigger charge bonus, and their power increased with the spell casted during the battle. So they can be an interesting choice, but for me still a B tier. I don't think they are that solid, and as I said, if you want to play in the assault mode, maybe the Forsaken are just better. And I'm very sorry because I love this unit. I would like a lot to get even the Bowman Zangors, the Brave Shaman Zangors. I really would have liked, so I really think Creative Assembly should give more love to them, but in the actual state I will not suggest you to recruit a lot of them unless you're making a thematic armies, and I do a lot of them. Now let's move to the Flamers of Tzeentch. What's a Flamer of Tzeentch? Basically it's a unit of monstrous infantry with a missile attack. Now they have many downsides. They have a very low ammunition, they are very weak, and they have a short range, and they are like useless in many situations against faction like empires, dwarves, and so on. So they are very, I mean, you have to use them in very selected situation. They are not versatile, but their damage it's so strong. It's incredible. That's why I still feel to give them a B tier. The Exalted version is a single entity monster, and he has a strong missile attack that over patches it gets stronger and stronger. That's why I will put him in a C tier, because yeah, even if it's quite strong, even in this case it's very weird, it's very tricky to use. You have to find the right situation, the right faction, and otherwise it will be just a waste of resources. But yeah, I'm admitting that its damage with its range is very strong, so feel free to use it. You have my approval, but around all the Tzeentch roster is not a unit I would suggest to put in your army. The Changebringers of Tzeentch. When they announced their introduction in the game, I was quite disappointed, because I mean they were just a reskin, just taking some disc, taking some flamers and put them together, you get a new unit. But they're actually an option from the Games Workshop Tzeentch roster, so it's okay. And using them in the game, they are just vanilla. They are perfect. I will put them in the A tier just because they are, they are very weak, and you have to be careful to other missile units or to other flying units that can attack you. And yeah, they are very vulnerable, and they require a lot of management because they have low munition, and if you want to use them properly, you have to put them in the right direction, hit one target, then another target, and move on. They require a lot of management. But despite that, I can tell you that they are still a very high tier units, and I would suggest to recruit just one of them in any of your army. The Burning Chariot of Tzeentch. This is another, for me they are a D tier unit, honestly. They are cool, it's a flying monster that it's very vulnerable, and yeah, despite the very good damage, it's very tricky to use it in battle, requires a lot of management, but at that point, believe me, it's far better. The Changebringers, they will deal lot more damage overall. So yeah, I'm a little sad to put this unit there because I love it. I love to use it in the battlefield. But yeah, when they build that thematic army. But if I have to give suggestions to a friend, I would not put in a very high tier, and for me are quite unrecruitable. And don't forget that you need a 5th tier building for them, and at that point just take a Mutual Elite Vortex Beast and go on. Now Cavalry, the Chariots of Tzeentch. They're actually a solid unit, they deserve a C. I don't use them a lot because, as I said, I'm a little... I don't like all these generic monogod units, but I mean, I have to admit they do their job, they are armored, they have a good charge bonus, so a C tier is more than enough. The same, but in this case a B tier for the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch. They're another solid unit, they are armored, they are fast, and Tzeentch they don't have many solid armored fast options, so they're actually quite useful if you want to build more like Mortals army. They can be a very nice choice, and yeah, both versions are quite the same for me. Depends if you want to keep them more in prolonged combat or just use them to psycho charge, your choice. The Centaurs are another unit that I get a little disappointed when they announce them as the upgraded version of the Tzeentch package of Shadows of Change, but at the end I fell in love with them. They are lesser than the Chaos Knights, they are less armor, but they have a strong armor piercing damage, and to defend your flanks like from other cavalries, even some monsters, or to charge around other missile units. I mean, they're very strong. Just don't use them against the wrong opponent, so anti-large infantry or specialized cavalry, but except that they deal a lot of damage, and I love them. I really love them. Another A tier unit for me. The Marauder Swordsmen of Tzeentch for me are another C tier units. I don't want to waste many words on them. They do their job, and actually with that, for me they would be a D tier, I mean a Chaos War Shrine unrecruitable units. But since they have the magical shield with Tzeentch, they're actually more powerful than the other monogods version, because when they will start to be hit by other missile units of your enemy, they actually are protected by the shield and can then just go away and come back, so a little nicer than the other monogods version, but still not more than a C tier. Now we have the Doom Knights, a very nice cavalry, very powerful. For me are a A tier unit. They're very expensive, and they have some downsides. They are shielded, but they don't have armor piercing damage, and they are perfect for siege, but then they are in low numbers. So yeah, it's a tricky unit, but still, if you use them properly, they can be the guardians of your flying lords, because I mean basically all lords, generic and not or heroes of Tzeentch, they are all flying, so I use them a lot as a bodyguard of them, and they are quite careful. I mean, over the sky they have very few predators, but yeah, keep an eye on them because they are not that tough like they seem. For me, as I said, are A tier units. Now let's move to the Beast. Chaos Furies for me are A tier units. Please don't stop the video, let me explain. Tzeentch doesn't have many fast harassing options in the roster, and yeah, you really have to wait for Chaos Knights, as I say, to have a solid fast units. So what you can do with that? There are even other flying options, but I think the Chaos Furies, for their price, since they have the shield, they're a very tough choice. You can use them to harass missile, to hit very hard artillery pieces, and they are quite strong. They don't go down that easily. So for the usage and for the price, I think they deserve a A tier. Now, the Screamers. This is a sad choice for me because for me are a very cool model, and I really would like Creative Assembly to buff them a lot, but in the current state they give poor damage, they are weak, they're supposed to be anti-large, so anti-large armor piercing, so you expect them to to perform well against heavy cav, but I can tell you that they just don't. Sometimes they even lose fights against light infantry or light monsters, so yeah, they don't feel their role. So for me, a C tier unit, and I hope the Creative Assembly in the future can consider the option to buff them a little. Now the Chaos Spawns. They are another units that I don't like because it's generic, but I have to give to Card France what it's of Card France, and for me they are a C tier unit. They are unbreakable, they reduce the armor of the enemy, and they are a tough monstrous infantry if you want to give support to your normally weaker infantry of Tzeentch compared to the other melee infantry of the other faction. So for me, it's a good choice, I have to admit that. And then we have the Cockatrice. The Cockatrice for me is a overpowered unit, and it's another unit I'm in love with. It's is this flying monster. It's for me it's basically a Lord of Change but cheaper and without the magic, the spells, of course. He has a lot of abilities, and he has one that reduces the speeds and of the enemy. Then and it's very tough. I mean, there are so many qualities in this unit that I don't know how to list all of them. You can use it to absorb damage, you can use it to deal damage. It's very versatile, it's flying, it's fast, he has few predators, and yeah, if it's in trouble you can just run away. I love it, I just love it. The Chaos War Shrine, of course, will go in the Chaos War Shrine categories. In the Tzeentch Chaos War Shrine has this ability, the specific ability to increase the recharge with all the enemies falling in the nearby. That I mean, before it was giving this recharge just to the lords, to the heroes and nearbys, but now it's to everyone in the range of all the map. But still, it's so useless. I mean, and then Tzeentch doesn't have a problem with oh, I have very few winds of magic, so I mean, really, who cares? I mean, normally is the side you perform better, so it's just not necessary. If you want to recruit it to have fun, I don't know what kind of fun, I mean, just take a cultist or a hero with that, but yeah, I would avoid completely to recruit one of them. Now in this last section we'll talk about monsters. We have first the Soul Grinder of Tzeentch. I already made a video about Soul Grinders that I would suggest you to watch because it's really cool. And the Soul Grinder of Tzeentch for me is a A tier unit. He has a very strong missile attack, he is tough in melee, and yeah, it's a very versatile, you can use them in multiple ways. As I said before the game, I would really suggest you to hit the infantry enemy from the side or just focus on cavalry and monster, and it will do a great job. And then you can just charge around, attack. It's not the toughest of the Soul Grinder, but it does his job very correctly, and I like it. Mutualite Vortex Beast. This is another OP unit for me. First, I mean, there are many units in this game like that. I mean exactly with the same exact model, and but this is definitely my favorite because it's within a roster that actually miss this kind of stuff. And having this big tank that absorb a lot of damage with a lot of passive abilities to buff unit nearby, to debuff enemies nearby, and yeah, it's strong in every field. And you will see it overperforms in battle, and we're still talking about a 2100 money unit, so it's very expensive, but even for that price it's very strong and it does a great job. Later, I mean at the end, we have the Lord of Change. Now, the Lord of Change is a very tricky unit, because if I have to consider the Lord of Change with all the technologies that unlocked all his spells and so on, for me it's an overpowered unit, because you have the Gate of Tzeentch that you can use a couple of times for free without winds of magic. And I mean, this is crazy. This is like you can, with a couple of Gate of Tzeentch, you can destroy half of the army of your enemy. So very good. But at the same time, without all these spells, it's just a very weak single entity flying monster that underperforms compared to all the other flying monsters with yeah, a couple of spells that they are not gonna make the difference. And remember that it's not a cheap unit. You're paying a greater demon with yeah, with a lot of money, with a very big expensive dude, so you don't need it. Without technology you don't need it. So where should I put a unit that it's overpowered with all the spells unlocked and completely cause War Shrine without all the spells? I think I will put it in the B tier. So decides how you want to use it, or you can wait to move to the technology, and I mean, it's not a problem for Tzeentch, and at that point it will be overpowered. But at the beginning, just if you didn't focus on technology, just don't waste your money on that. Thank you for following me. We will see very soon, and bye bye.